So I took more time than usual to give you my in-depth review of this Samsung Galaxy A73 because there were a lot of things about this phone which makes it too good to be true, and the battery life on this phone was shockingly bad. So let's find out how it is after using this phone daily for 1.5 months. Now here's a recap of the phone specs, and feel free to pause this video to see the exact variant that I have. So as usual during my full video reviews, I don't go into all of the technicality of the phone at all, where it will be based on me using the phone daily, starting from the build quality and the design perspective. Now firstly, the phone did feel like I was using the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE. I love how the sides had the aluminum finish and of course the matte finish at the back, which helped me with the overall grip of the phone to the point that I didn't even use any smartphone case when I was using it daily. Now, although I've always preferred a white color smartphone, I have to say that this awesome mint color has surely turned some heads, where the usual question that I get from people is that a new Samsung phone? Now, it is super rare for a mid-range smartphone to have an IP67 dust and water resistant rating, so it is nice that the phone had that, because if you live here in Malaysia, the weather can be kinda crazy. Sometimes it's super hot, sometimes it's raining for days. And I came into several situations where I got wet in the rain, and I never had that sort of anxiety that the phone would not work afterward. Now, as mentioned in my first impressions video, there were lots of complaints about the phone not having a headphones jack, and based on me using it daily, I personally did not feel like I missed that at all, since Bluetooth headphones and earbuds are getting ridiculously good and cheap these days. And yes, I know that some people cannot live with the whole no headphones jack situation, then you should probably look elsewhere. But still, I think that we are at the point where this is to be expected, so you do you, okay? However, a trend that the Galaxy A73 did not follow is the removal of the micro SD card slot expansion, which for me is more important than the headphones jack. And once again, personally, I can't even remember when was the last time I actually held a micro SD card. But of course, this is something that I would think that would be more beneficial, so kudos to Samsung for not getting rid of this. Now, one of the main reasons I've always recommended and loved the A series smartphones from Samsung is the consistency of giving us a very great screen on their devices. Now, I've mentioned tons of times that not every AMOLED screens are created equal, and this 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Plus display even pushes the quality of the screen even further, because ultimately, what's the point of having a smartphone with all the cool features but you have to live with an okay screen, right? And if you love a flat screen smartphone, I assure you that you will absolutely love the screen on this phone. And probably the only difference that you might notice if you compare the screen on the Galaxy A73 and a flagship smartphone is the quality of the refresh rate. Because while it had a 120Hz refresh rate, but it is not adaptive, so it will force its way to use that high refresh rate all the way, so you will eventually get a lower battery life if you use it daily compared to going down to 60Hz. Now, while it can go down to 60Hz, but the screen is so good that I'd rather not go down to that lower refresh rate. So with that, navigating and scrolling around the phone daily was super smooth and also had a very pleasant experience indeed. Then consuming videos on the phone was great as expected. The color accuracy was on point, and since it had wideband L1 playback quality with HDR10 capabilities, I even watched a couple of Stranger Things episodes as a recap exclusively on the phone when I was doing my daily cardio sessions in the gym. So yes, overall the display on the Samsung Galaxy A73 was really great, and I have absolutely no complaints at all. Now here's a quick recap of the camera specs in case you have missed my previous video on this phone. The Samsung Galaxy A73 comes with a massive 108MP f1.8 main camera, a 12MP f2.2 ultra-wide lens, a 5MP f2.4 depth lens, and a 5MP f2.4 macro lens. Then the front camera has a 32MP f2.2 lens. Now here's where it is another area where the Samsung A series does not disappoint. Because whether or not you're taking a high 108MP image, the ultra-wide or the main lenses, you're looking at pictures that looks as close to a flagship The portrait mode especially has always been one of my favorites compared to most other mid-range smartphones within this price range, where the dynamic range has always been excellent with decent edge detection. Then the macro mode was pretty good if you're into that. And you're guaranteed to have one of the best skin tones and properly exposed images for the selfie photos as well. Then taking photos at night also produce great results, whether it's on the ultra-wide lens or more so for the main lens with the perfect balance of highlights and shadows. However, if you happen to take selfie images at night, it might be a hit or miss, depending on the lighting environment. Then looking at the video sides of things, the video quality was great as you could record up to 4K 30 frames per second, where the image stabilization was decent for the main, and while you can turn on the super steady mode for better stabilization, but it goes down to 1080p recording, hence I would prefer to use the ultra-wide lenses as the 4K footage was really nice and also pretty stable as well. Now, taking videos at night though was pretty decent, but obviously not as high level quality as the videos produced during the day. Then as for the front camera, I can honestly say that it has the best quality compared to any other Android smartphone, and of course when it comes to the mid-range market, and yes, for some claimed flagship smartphones, because this Samsung A series is the only mid-range smartphone that can shoot up to 4K 30 frames per second. So rest assured you're getting the best video quality with very decent image stabilization at that high recording 4K resolution. But if you want a better video stabilization, you can always switch it down to 1080p, but I'd rather have a higher quality video recording, especially if you're not walking about. And here's a video and an audio recording test on the phone using the 4K and also the 1080p mode. Yo, this is a video test to see how the front camera is. It's on 4K, and also to see how exactly the audio recording is when it comes to having a vlogging situation. I'm on a rooftop, so it is pretty windy, so let's see how well that the camera does for the video camera for the front when it comes to overall noise cancellation for the microphone. So let me know what you guys think. Image stabilization for the 1080p footage is quite nice. The overall skin tones and the background is nicely exposed compared to a lot of mid-range or even some of the so-called flagship smartphones out in the market today. So that was pretty good. So it all depends on whether or not you want to use 1080p, but at least there is still an option of 4K, which is really amazing, especially for a smartphone within this price range. So with this, do let me know what you think of the camera's performance, and if you're enjoying this video, a nice big thumbs up would be very much appreciated, and a subscription would be awesome as well. Now, one of the biggest debates whenever someone tells me about how Samsung smartphones are too expensive for a mid-range is the fact that you are paying for the overall software experience. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again, in my humble opinion, the One UI 4.1 skin is my favorite Android skin, and there hasn't been a point where the phone lagged or hung when I tried opening a bunch of apps or even loading up games. And since Samsung guarantees to have 4 years of Android and One UI upgrade and up to 5 years of security updates, it's quite a no-brainer to invest in a smartphone that will last you for years to come from not only a hardware perspective but also from the software end as well. Then software features like link to Windows, Bixby routines, Buds auto switching and Samsung Pay, which is usually a flagship level smartphone feature, is also working flawlessly on the phone as well. And the good news is that since it's using the Snapdragon 778G chipset, the 700 series from Snapdragon has always been super reliable, especially when it comes to overheating, where during my heavy usage, I never came to a point where it overheats, but only warm to the touch, especially towards the camera bump area, but that is it. And that is only when I do high quality gaming for a really long time, which is a great segue to the next topic, which is gaming. Now, based on my test using smartphones using the 700 series chipset, I knew that the phone would perform very well on Genshin Impact. So based on my test, the optimum settings it performed the best were at medium with 60 frames per second with motion blur turned off. And as mentioned, here's the only time where the phone became a little warm but never hot to the touch, where it will initially raise the temperature towards a non-stop gaming of 33 minutes or so, and then it slowly cools down. And while the performance and the overall gameplay was smooth, one really noticeable area was the battery drain, only specifically for Genshin Impact, and this could be due to the non-adaptive refresh rate that the screen had at 120Hz. Then switching over to PUBG Mobile. Since the game works exceptionally well on mid-range to flagship smartphones due to its excellent software optimization, the gameplay experience was really smooth. And the phone had hardly even any heat during a very long gameplay, where once again the warmth was slightly towards the camera bump area, and that's it. And the battery drain was better over here at about 6% in 29 minutes of gameplay, and the settings were at HDR for the graphics and frame rate at Ultra. Next, as for the phone's battery, it has 5000 mAh of battery with 25 watts fast charging, which sounds really good on paper, but let's see how it performs when it comes to using it daily. Now, from the beginning of my daily usage, I was shocked at how bad the battery life was, because I was averaging about 4.5 plus hours with dark mode turned off, with 120Hz refresh rate all the way, with lots of gaming and social media browsing as well. Now, I knew that I could get a little more battery if I did not use it heavily and turn the dark mode on. And this is also obviously due to the non-adaptive refresh rate, but I still could not believe that a smartphone that has 5000 mAh of battery only gave me that much of screen on time. And yes, I couldn't bring myself to use the phone to a 60Hz refresh rate, even though it will prove to save even more battery because of how beautiful the screen looks. And then there was a recent update when things started to improve, where I was finally averaging about 6 to even 7 hours of battery life with dark mode turned off once again with the high 120Hz refresh rate. So this goes to show how great Samsung software, as mentioned earlier, is, and it is something that Samsung easily fixed with an update, which shows the credibility of them being not only a great hardware company but also a software company, especially when it comes to their smartphone devices. So in conclusion, coming at a price of 2099 ringgit as of the recording of this video, while it may not be the cheapest compared to the other mid-range counterparts, I humbly feel that it is an extremely fair price if you're looking for a smartphone that has excellent build, that lasts longer under any weather condition, great battery, a camera performance close to a flagship level, especially for the front cameras and both for video and photo, and a really good screen, then the Samsung Galaxy A73 is a no-brainer for you to get. Now, should you upgrade if you're using the Samsung Galaxy A72? Well, if your phone works well and you don't have any issues, then you probably shouldn't. But in every other aspect, if you have a smartphone, especially with a more than one generation gap, then I would totally recommend the Samsung Galaxy A73 once again.